Tell me your message here, what you want to say to the Prime Minister.
Well, our major concern, of course, is the kind of unilateral announcement by the Premier to expand the Island Airport.
Mm-hmm.
That goes against a policy now for many, many years of a shared vision of all three levels of government to make sure that we have a balance of uses: residential, recreation, commercial, ecological. And that's our major concern. That's why we've asked in the letter the federal government to ensure a public process and make sure that there are studies carried out to assess the impact of the expansion that's being advocated by the Premier.
That vision that you talk about, that's sort of been 25 years in the making when you first sort of started off leading this commission in terms of revitalizing what you called what was sort of an area that was debilitating and then bringing it back to life. What the Premier is proposing, talk to us a little bit more about how that clashes with that vision. And as you sort of put it, it's really going to be a detriment to the area.
Well, first of all, it's a unilateral declaration. The whole point of many years ago when the policies were laid down, they were agreed to by three levels of government and a public that was engaged in the process. What we have so far, at any rate, is simply a unilateral declaration. We think that it's important that the federal government, therefore, assert its constitutional responsibilities and carry out a public process to assess and carry out studies to assess the impact of the expansion of the airport. The concern here is not necessarily whether it's jets or no jets. It's the expansion of the airport that disturbs the unity of the uses and the way in which we've had a balance of uses. And that balance has guided the multi-billions of dollars of investment and public planning that's gone on now for 25 years. That's why it's in danger.
The Premier has touted and said that this will bring more jobs. It will revitalize and enhance the area. Your pushback is, well, when we're talking about jobs and development here, that's sort of already in the plans here, and this would sort of jeopardize what that plan would be. Talk to us a bit more about what that vision has been.
The vision has been, of course, first of all, to have residential on the waterfront. And that's the most striking difference you'd see. If you walk down to the waterfront 25 years ago, you didn't have a lot of residential, hardly any, south of Front Street. Now there are tens of thousands of people living there. And indeed, the vision for the future and already underway of accomplishing is for 100,000 people living along that waterfront. It's also a vision for an ecological endeavor to make sure that we're carrying out our responsibilities in our relationship with nature. It's also for recreation, and it's also for making sure that the planning that's done is done jointly with all levels of government and with the public, not simply a unilateral declaration by the Premier of Ontario.
Yeah, that look at this, and sort of you're leaning towards what it is, Bill C-5, the Canadian Economy Act, that you are asking the Prime Minister in this letter to say we don't want you to go in that direction. And for our listeners here, so it's the bill would essentially exempt proposed expansion of Billy Bishop Airport from federal laws and reviews. And you're saying that review is critical. The Prime Minister has said that Ford's proposal is, quote, an interesting vision with, quote, big possibilities. Talk to me more about this message here and this push to say, regardless of, I guess, the interesting vision and the big possibilities, everything needs to be put on the table, and that review is very, very critical because it does come down to now, of course, the federal government. We've seen that pushback from the city.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, this is not complicated. Public policies along the waterfront, indeed, in Canada, Ontario, and Toronto for many, many years, has always insisted on a public process, not simply a private endeavor. It's a public process, and we carry out studies to carry out the impact of the actions being proposed. This is really important on the waterfront because when you deal with where land meets water, it's always more complicated than around the world. That's why around the world, you'll find that waterfront cities have always had a balance of uses and not made sure that one balance ate up the others. And that's what we're concerned about. This is particularly so because there's no sense that somehow they want to engage in a public process or indeed they want to carry out studies of the impact. You just want to go ahead and do it.
Have you reached out to the Premier's office, to the Mayor as well, to have those conversations as well, to sort of, as you say, this is a process that has to have everybody at the table for those discussions, for that review?
No, the Premier's not reached out to anybody beyond his own concerns.
Have you had an opportunity to reach out or at least try to reach out?
Well, I always have an opportunity.
Okay.
I've engaged that process all my life.
What do you think this is going to mean for the city either way?
Well, either way, it's really important. If in fact they go ahead and increase the expansion of the airport beyond what the balance we all want, you're going to find that the investment dries up, that the recreation suffers, residential neighborhoods will be affected. You're talking about a residential neighborhood now of coming to 100,000 people as it's built out. That's a hell of a lot different than it was years ago, and that's why we should be paying attention to the fact that the Premier has no understanding of the impact of what he's talking about.
We're going to follow the issue very closely, as it is quite one that has got a lot of people talking and debating indeed. But Mr. Crombie, before I let you go, I understand that you are celebrating your 90th birthday, turning 90 years young today. Happy birthday from all of us here at Metro Morning. But when you consider your decades of public service towards the city of Toronto, how do you reflect on the moment we're in right now?
Oh, right now, this city has potential that is beyond belief. It has, over the years that I've been involved and others have been involved, many, many people, this city has become one of the great cities of the world. So that's why there's a great heart and great passion when it comes to simply trying to do things unilaterally, not bothering but to check with other people, not understanding the consequences, what you want to do. So the city benefits because we made sure it's a big tent. And there's public discussion before we take moves.
Well, we hope you celebrate with a great deal of fanfare. Again, best wishes from all of us. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. David